Deebo Samuel hopped on a podcast, and I came with the impression of this is someone who wants to play in Denver. So I want to discuss the latest rumors out there surrounding the 49ers wide receiver and whether or not it'd be a good fit for the Broncos to pursue him. And most importantly, do I believe it is going to happen? But he was on a Bleacher Report podcast, and they talked about, hey, who are some teams that you think are in, a good spot and are on the right path and whatnot? And here's what Deebo said. I can say Denver. Bo Nix is playing really, really good ball right now. Their defense is outrageous. You got P2 out there, who I would say is the best at the position right now. I just think you need a couple more pieces. I'm all aboard the Deebo Samuel train. Of course, for the right price. I'm not looking to trade premium, very valuable assets for him, but just surface level, am I interested in Deebo? Yes, I am. I think Deebo can still play at a really high level. I think he can fit the mold of that Joker role that Sean Payton has mentioned so many times this offseason he is searching for. He's a great rusher. His yards after contact ability is through the roof. He leads the NFL in history for rushing touchdowns by a wide receiver, and it's not even close. But what do you know? Look who's number 2, Taysom Hill, someone that Payton had a ton of success with. Rushing yards by a wide receiver since entering the league in 2019, Deebo is first, just ahead of Taysom Hill. I'll also say right now, there's a decent chance the Saints move on from Taysom Hill as a cap casualty, so maybe the Broncos make a move for Hill at that point. But yeah, if you ask me, Petey, do you want the Broncos to pursue Deebo Samuel? Do you think it would be a good trade or a good acquisition? Overall, my answer is yes. So now I want you to be the host for a second here. Do you want to trade for Deebo? I've seen some people on Twitter say, I'm not interested in a Deebo wide receiver. I got news for you. Most wide receivers are divas. It comes with the territory of being a wide receiver. There are so many great wide receivers who have had a lot of diva moments. What, you don't want Randy Moss? You don't want Antonio Brown in his heyday? Julio Jones even requested a trade from the Falcons. Guys, this is coming with the territory of when you're a wide receiver, it's kind of like a hockey goalie. You're wired differently. And when you're an NFL receiver, it's me, 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 me. You need the ball to be successful. You don't get big paydays because of the run block you threw out there or the decoy route you run. So, of course, team first and all, but yeah, it comes with the territory of when you play wide receiver in the NFL, you want attention. You're like a puppy that just keeps pawing at you, right? That's my dog does at least. So I'm not too turned off by the fact that Deebo has had some diva-esque moments. I think he's been overall a really important piece of that 49ers locker room, and I would welcome him to the Mile High City with open arms. Now, when I said earlier I would love to pursue Deebo, I also said for the right price, of course. I don't think Denver is going to part ways with a day 2 draft pick. Obviously, Deebo is not worth a first-round pick. I don't think he's worth a second-round pick. Stephon Diggs got traded for a second-round draft pick. Devontae Adams for a conditional third-round draft pick. Deebo is not in that tier. He's kind of in a notch below it. So you're not going to see the Broncos move on from a third-round draft pick in my eyes. I think you might see the Broncos maybe organize a day 3 pick swap where, hey, we give you a 6th-round pick and you give us Deebo and we give you a 4th-round pick and you give us Deebo and a 5th. Something like that. But we also have to look at the money side of things. This is the boring part of it, but it is important, so stick with me for a minute. Deebo has a big cap hit coming up, and he's got a big dead cap hit as well. Dead money is the portion of the salary cap that is dedicated to a player who is not on the roster. This is usually a result of restructuring contracts and kicking the can down the road, which I know most people think is an awful idea. I don't think it's that awful of an idea if you know what you're doing and you feel like the time is right. The 49ers saw an opportunity to maximize their spending, and they wanted to do that by restructuring contracts to free up cap space. It brought them to the Super Bowl last year. Unfortunately, they just came up a little bit short, but I don't think the process was wrong. So if the 49ers trade him before June 1st, they get no cap savings. In fact, they take on $31 million in dead money. Now, if they were to release him with the post-June 1 designation, which you can do for 2 players, they can split that $31 million over 2025 and 2026. And that would give them $5 million in cap savings for 2025, which is why, like Cooper Kupp a week ago, I think the Broncos might go, we're just going to wait for you to release him because you're probably not going to get a ton of offers to begin with. And for the dead money you're going to take on by trading him, it might be easier just to take the pro of post-June 1 release for salary cap relief, along with the con of we don't even get a draft pick, but the only draft picks we're being offered right now are 6th and 7th round picks. So would we rather have some cap relief or a late day 3 pick? They might take the cap relief option. So if you're Denver, you can just kind of sit back and wait. It kind of reminds me of like DeAndre Hopkins. When he was going to get moved from the Cardinals, everyone's wondering who's going to trade for him. Turns out nobody. He got released. Now, next up on today's episode, ESPN put out a fun article breaking down all 32 teams into different tiers going into the offseason. So I want to share with you guys what tier the Broncos landed in. But I was diving into the YouTube analytics between our channel and the Chiefs channel here at Chat Sports, and we have a slight edge on them since Super Bowl Sunday. So let's pour salt on the wound right now. Let's make sure that the Chiefs know there's going to be a changing of the guard in the AFC West and in the AFC in general. So scroll on down and click that sub button if you're with me. Looking at the first tier of ESPN teams, still major contenders is what they called it, and they only have 2 teams in it, the Chiefs and the Eagles, which I agree with. Like right now, the Chiefs look deader than dead, but I'm sure they'll find a way to pick themselves off the mat with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. The Eagles, there's a lot of cases, like Denver, unfortunately, in 2015, of, hey, we won the Super Bowl, but we don't think we're going to be nearly as good as next year, so good job by us for seizing this opportunity. The Eagles, I don't believe, are going to take a step back or anything like that. They have one of the youngest rosters in football. They have Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, all in their prime. They are still going to be a force to be reckoned with. The next tier is on the cusp. So the Broncos, not quite in the one piece away-ish territory. They've got the Ravens, the Bills, and the Lions. And I agree with this tier. We see how close the Bills have come. The Ravens just need to get a tight end who can catch the ball on a 2-point conversion. And the Lions, I don't know what the remedy is for the Lions other than get healthy. Because by the end of the season, they had practice squad guys on the field, which is a tough shake for them, but that's probably the best medicine right now. Next tier is need a postseason breakthrough, where they put the Packers and the Vikings. Now, I agree with the Vikings part here, but the Packers I just found interesting because they won a postseason game last year in Dallas, and then they went kind of ish toe-to-toe with the Niners, who would win the NFC, but this year they got bounced in round 1 to the Eagles, who we know what they would do on after that. So the Packers, I'm not going to say deserve to be in a tier above this because they're not really on the cusp of breaking through and being a perennial NFC, AFC contender, but they kind of have had their postseason breakthrough. Third or fourth, whatever tier we're at right now, is teetering contenders. 4th tier. Bengals, Steelers, and Texans. I do like this name because it does feel like they are kind of teetering, although I don't think the Steelers are really teetering. The Steelers are just punching above their weight class, in my opinion, and I think it's going to start to not come back to bite them, but it's going to start catching up to them that the constant quarterback turnover and an aging defense that has bailed out this team year after year after year might run out of gas. Texans, and this is just, by the way, what Joe Burrow does for you, because the Bengals went 9-8, and they had fewer wins than a lot of teams in this next category, which is headed on the right track. And here is where the Broncos land. 10-7, in company with the Chargers, the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Seahawks, the Commanders. Commanders, I feel bad for. They just went to the NFC Championship game, and they're viewed as the Seahawks, who didn't even make the playoffs. The Rams, they were one play-ish away from going to the NFC Championship game, or winning the NFC Championship game, and they are headed on the right track. I think they're probably a little bit above that, but they do have some questions with Stafford's future. But let's talk about the Broncos here for a second, because the Broncos are, I think, at 10-7, I think fairly so, headed on the right track. I don't think this is something to pitch a fit over. I know anytime a big publication like this puts out rankings of teams, it's our moral obligation, almost like a civic duty, to be mad at them for not putting your team a little bit higher up. But at 10-7, first postseason appearance since 2015. Fortunately, got your, I wouldn't say butts kicked against the Bills. The score indicates that, but for much of the game, it was pretty close. They are on the right track. And I do think there are some pieces that need to be added, and they're not just one piece away. But I like this fit for the Broncos. I don't think this is one to be upset over. So going back to the question we just put on screen for half a second, wins-wise, because I'm going to Vegas for my brother's bachelor party next weekend. And I get to cash in all the NFL season win totals I placed back in September when I went for the first time. I'm thinking whatever Vegas has the Broncos at, which is probably going to be around 10.5, I'm thinking over. So let me know. Influence me. I'm not taking the under because that's just a sad bet to make. But I'll take the over on this one. Give me your thoughts down below in the comment section. Can Denver climb up to 11 wins, or do they hang around 10 wins back-to-back seasons? If you're curious where the other teams landed, we'll just run through the list real quick here. A move or two away. Falcons, Cowboys, Colts, and Niners. It's a tough fall for the Niners. I mean, not even 13 months away from playing in the Super Bowl with a lead, and they are now just a move or two away. But I guess when you go 6-11, it fits you a little bit. Stuck in quarterback purgatory. They have the Browns and the Raiders. I think this is a poor title. I think the title should just be very far away, right? Stuck in quarterback purgatory is a team that keeps going like 7-10, and they don't have a good enough draft pick to secure one of the top quarterbacks, but they are almost too good of a roster to lose 3 games. So they're not stuck in quarterback purgatory. I don't think they know what the word purgatory means. Purgatory is like the waiting room for heaven. So they're not in the waiting room for heaven. They're in hell right now. They're very far away from purgatory. They would love to be in purgatory. Could go either way. Cardinals, Bears, Dolphins. This is a big win for the Bears. I mean, look who's up and look who's below them. A couple of 8-win teams, and they were 4-2 at one point and then lost 10 in a row only to win the last game of the season, the last game that owner Virginia McCaskey would watch before she passed away at the very young age, gone too soon at 102. But I like this one. I keep falling in love with the Cardinals. They're kind of like my unofficial, not favorite team, but team I just keep believing in. Like, team I just keep betting on. That's got to have, like, a phrase for it. But I keep thinking the Cardinals are going to be better than they end up being because I still think Kyler Murray is a very good quarterback. But the rest of this kind of checks out for me. New coach, new direction. Jags and Saints. Yeah, sounds about right to me. Duval. And then we'll see how Kellen Moore does in the Big Easy. What if Kellen Moore gets fat? Wow, that'd be something. All the gumbo? He doesn't look like he has the potential to get fat. But if there's a city where you could put a lot of weight on, he's in it. Rebuild in the works. Panthers, Titans, and Giants. The tough thing about the Giants being in this one is their ownership doesn't believe it. If they did believe that, they would have fired their GM and head coach to start fresh. They still think they can get back quickly. Bad news for them. They are in a rebuild, and I don't think they're in full acceptance of that. The next tier is teams still rebuilding, Patriots and Jets. The Jets aren't rebuilding. Like, the Jets didn't go into the season rebuilding. The Jets went into the season thinking we are going to be an AFC wildcard team at worst. So I don't think they're still rebuilding. I just think they are starting to rebuild. So they should be in the other tier, in my opinion. We'll end the video with this, though. Name a Broncos grinder. We have started this trend on the channel, if you don't know, of I saw someone on like Instagram Reels do this where he puts out a description like this and counts down from 5 and sees if himself and the viewer says the same person at the same time. So I've got a Broncos grinder in my eyes. This is a little bit open for interpretation, but I think when you hear my guy, you'll be like, yeah, that kind of fits the bill for what a grinder is. So I've got my guy. 3, 2, 1. Willis McGahee. As a running back, that's a grinder. He was not some flashy running back. No, he wanted to fight for the extra yards. Willis McGahee, definitely a grinder.